She didn't snoop. She didn't ask. She just got a notification. A ride. Booked from her home. At 2 a.m. But she wasn't going anywhere. No confrontation. No shouting. Just one woman. And one app. Telling the truth no one expected. Brianna from Queens, the 2 a.m. rideshare wasn't for her. Series, 10 True Affair Stories from New York. The keys fell with a soft clink onto the entryway table. Brianna stood in the silence of her Queens apartment, the air stale from being shut all day. She kicked off her shoes with one tired motion, the rubber soles thudding dully against the wall. Her scrubs still clung to her, carrying the scent of antiseptic and something metallic, maybe blood, maybe just exhaustion. The digital clock on the microwave blinked 1:48 a.m. She let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. 12 hours on the floor. 3 traumas, 2 codes. 1 patient she couldn't save. Her shoulders sagged under invisible weight as she moved toward the kitchen, opening the fridge without purpose. She stared at the same half-empty bottle of almond milk, the container of takeout rice she wasn't going to eat. Then, the chime. Her phone lit up on the counter. A notification. Your ride is arriving now. Her brow furrowed. She hadn't ordered a ride. She picked up the phone, expecting an error, maybe a glitch. But the name was there clear and bold under the rideshare app logo, Malcolm. Her husband. The pickup location? Their address. She blinked. Maybe he mistyped her address instead of his hotel. He was supposed to be in Albany for a conference. Left 3 days ago. She hadn't heard much, just a good night text, a generic long day reply when she asked how it was going. She told herself it was just work. But the app showed otherwise. The dot on the screen pulsed like a heartbeat. A driver named Jorge was 3 minutes away. She stared at the phone. Not hers. Not her ride. But from here. The light above the stove cast a low, warm glow. Everything in the apartment felt too quiet, like the walls had drawn breath and were waiting with her. A creak in the hallway. Her own breathing. The distant buzz of traffic below. The details sharpened, as if her mind had turned up the volume on reality. The notification shifted. Rider en route to Casella Boutique Hotel. She didn't move. It was a name she knew. She passed it on her way to work sometimes. Chic, upscale. A place for champagne and secrets. Rooms by the hour, by the intention. The pulse in her throat ticked faster. Still, she didn't speak. Didn't scream. The instinct to call him Malcolm flared and vanished just as quickly. She already knew. Instead, she sat down. Carefully. As if any sudden motion might shatter her. She placed the phone in front of her on the kitchen table. Her hands trembled slightly, but her face remained still. She watched the screen as the car approached its destination. 1 block away. At hotel entrance. Ride complete. She didn't cry. The emotion wasn't tears. It was something deeper. A kind of cold blooming inside her chest. Not like the sharp stab of betrayal you see in movies. No screaming violins. Just silence, pressing in. She reached for the kettle, filled it slowly. The sound of the water hitting metal was louder than it should have been. She boiled it, poured it into a chipped mug. Herbal tea, something meant to soothe. Her fingers wrapped around the warmth like it was the only real thing left. What did it mean, exactly? Could she still lie to herself? That Malcolm was meeting someone for business? That he needed a quiet place to think? But rides at 2 a.m. from their shared home didn't leave space for negotiation. Especially when he used her account. Used her trust. Used her silence. She sipped the tea. It tasted like nothing. The room didn't change, but something inside her did. She stood and walked to the living room. Picked up a throw blanket. Draped it around her shoulders. She didn't turn on the TV. Didn't scroll. She just sat, the phone screen still glowing dimly from the counter, like it was waiting for her to react. But she wouldn't. Not yet. There were no sirens in her mind. No chaos. Just a slow, methodical alignment of facts and timelines and decisions. A betrayal that had probably started before tonight. But it didn't matter when. It mattered that it had arrived now quietly, digitally, like everything else in their life lately. No voice. No face. Just proof. Proof that Malcolm was here. And going somewhere he shouldn't be. And he didn't think she'd notice. But she had. And that changed everything. The tea had gone cold. Brianna didn't notice until her fingers, once clutching the mug like a lifeline, felt the chill seep through. She set it down and turned to her phone. The Rideshare app was still open, the completed trip mocking her in silence. Her thumb hovered, then tapped into the account history. Past trips. Dozens of them. Some hers work rides, quick errands, but others stood out. Late night pickups. From their home. Drop-offs at locations she didn't recognize. A string of destinations that formed no logical pattern. One in Hell's Kitchen. Another in Greenpoint. A few even across the river in Jersey City. But it was the most recent one last Friday that stopped her breath. Drop off, 10 Grove Court. It didn't sound familiar. She copied the address into maps. The pin landed in a quiet block known for discretion. Brianna had passed by once, heard the whispers from co-workers who joked that it was where married men went to forget their rings. A boutique townhouse. No sign. No front desk. Only a keypad entry and blinds that stayed closed. She stared at the screen. Malcolm had been home that night. Or so she thought. He'd told her he was working late. She remembered texting him around 9 p.m., asking if he wanted her to wait for dinner. He replied an hour later, "Don't wait up. Grab something for yourself." She had. And she had eaten alone, in the glow of their living room TV, with reruns and silence. Her hand tightened around the phone. More rides. More lies. The dates started forming a pattern. Thursdays. Some Saturdays. Occasionally Tuesdays. Each trip had been made under her account, using her trust as currency. Her thoughts became a slow storm. Not furious. Just methodical. She clicked each ride. Each timestamp. Each address. She imagined him sitting beside another woman. Laughing in the back seat. Reaching for someone who wasn't her. Kissing someone who didn't know how he snored or how he panicked when he lost his keys or that he always left the toothpaste cap off. It wasn't just cheating. It was intimacy stolen from her, regifted to someone who hadn't earned it. And worse, she had helped him do it. Unwittingly, yes. But her account. Her phone. Her silence. Her stomach turned. Brianna remembered how she used to defend him. When friends raised eyebrows. When her sister hinted he might not be as solid as he seemed. Brianna had smiled, said they were just tired, just busy. That Malcolm was private, not secretive. That love didn't need a parade. Now, all those memories tasted like metal. The app blinked, still open. She scrolled back to the earliest unfamiliar trip. Almost 2 months ago. A Wednesday. Pickup, home. Drop off, Barrow and 7th. A restaurant. A cozy one. She remembered recommending it. The betrayal wasn't just in the bodies. It was in the map of their life together used as a guide to deceive her. She pressed the side button. Locked the screen. Laid the phone face down. Her hands stayed clenched in her lap. How had she missed it? Because she wanted to. Because believing in him was easier than questioning everything. Because love, when it's loyal, grows blind in the dark. And because she'd trusted him with the softest parts of her. She let out a sound. Not quite a sob. More like an exhale cut short by grief. For a while, she just sat. Not moving. Not thinking. Just absorbing. Then, slowly, she stood. Walked to the bathroom. Washed her face. Cold water. No soap. Just something to bring her back. She caught her own eyes in the mirror. Red-rimmed, but steady. And behind them, something was shifting. Not rage. Not yet. But clarity. The kind that only comes after everything you believed has quietly collapsed. She turned off the light and walked back into the stillness of the living room. Not as the same woman who entered it an hour ago. But as someone who now knew, this wasn't a mistake. Wasn't a slip. It was a pattern. And she had just followed the trail. The coffee machine hissed quietly in the early morning light. Steam curled upward in lazy spirals, dissipating into the silence of the kitchen. Brianna stood barefoot, wrapped in an oversized cardigan, eyes fixed on the slow drip into her mug. Her movements were measured. Calm. As if she were alone. She wasn't. The front door clicked open at exactly 7:32 a.m. Malcolm stepped inside. No suitcase. No overnight bag. Just his phone in one hand and keys in the other. His shirt was wrinkled. His collar crushed. His hair damp not from a shower, but from the morning air or a rushed rinse somewhere else. A faint scent trailed him into the room, something floral, expensive, unfamiliar. He paused when he saw her. "Hey," he said, with a half smile that tried too hard. "Didn't expect you to be up." Brianna turned slightly toward him, her expression unreadable. "Coffee," she replied simply, and turned back to pour a cup. The mug she handed him wasn't warm with welcome. Just hot with liquid. Her eyes didn't meet his. Malcolm lingered by the counter, shifting slightly. "Listen, the trip got messed up. They cancelled last minute. Something about the venue. I stayed with Greg. You remember Greg, from the old job?" She nodded. "Didn't have time to text. We were talking late. Crashed on his couch." Another nod. He took a sip, then set the mug down. "You mad?" She shook her head. A beat of silence passed. Then 2. Then 5. Malcolm cleared his throat, walking around the island toward the living room. He stopped. The phone sat on the coffee table. Its screen was on. Displayed clearly was the Rideshare history. A trip from their address. At 2:08 a.m. to Casella Boutique Hotel. He froze. The smile faded. He didn't reach for the phone. Didn't sit down. Brianna's voice, quiet but steady, came from behind him. "You used my account." He turned. "Bri, I dash." She raised a hand. "Not to accuse. Just to stop the sound. You didn't think I'd see it? But you used my name. My data. You didn't even bother to cover your tracks." His lips parted, but no words came out. "I made you coffee," she said, gesturing to the counter. "Because you looked tired." Still no response. "Were you going to lie again? Or just let me keep pretending?" Malcolm ran a hand over his face, then through his damp hair. "It's not what you think. I didn't plan for this to happen." Her laugh was soft. Dry. Almost gentle. "I didn't plan to find out. But here we are." She sat on the edge of the couch, legs crossed, calm as if discussing the weather. "How many times?" He hesitated. It was complicated. She tilted her head. "That's not a number." He looked down. Brianna leaned back slightly. Her face still held no fire. Only the chill of distance. A distance built not from rage but from retreat. She had gone somewhere inside herself where he could no longer reach. "I should have told you," he murmured. "You shouldn't have needed to." The silence stretched again. It was no longer a pause, it was a decision. She stood. Walked to the table. Picked up the phone and handed it to him. "You can delete the app." He looked at her, confused. She met his gaze for the first time. "You won't be needing it anymore." He blinked. "Bri, what are you saying?" "I'm saying I saw the ride. I watched it on the screen, Malcolm. I watched you leave. And then I watched you arrive." He stepped forward. She didn't flinch. "I messed up," he said, his voice cracking now. "But we can talk about this. We can work through it." Brianna shook her head slowly. "There is no we left in this part." She turned away, not out of drama, but because there was nothing left to say. The man behind her didn't shout. Didn't beg. He just stood still, holding the phone that had betrayed him as much as he had betrayed her. She walked to the bedroom, closed the door behind her. The soft click wasn't angry. It was final. In the kitchen, 2 mugs of coffee sat untouched. Steam no longer rising. The silence returned, not hollow, but clean. Brianna lay on the bed, not crying. Just staring at the ceiling, her breath even. She didn't win. This wasn't a victory. It was survival. And silence had done the work. She didn't need to scream. She had let the truth speak for itself. Brianna woke before her alarm. The light in the room was gray and soft, the kind that comes just before sunrise. She lay still for a moment, listening to the hush of early morning. In the stillness, she felt no panic. No grief. Just quiet. She got up, showered, and packed without sound. She chose her clothes carefully: comfortable jeans, a navy sweater, sneakers that had taken her through years of hospital shifts. She folded what she needed, a week's worth of clothes, 2 cardigans, the photograph of her parents on their wedding day. She placed it in a padded envelope, like something fragile. The last thing she packed was a worn towel lined with cat fur. Her tabby, Salem, meowed once as she lifted him gently into the crate. She left the bedroom as it was. She didn't make the bed. Didn't write a note on the pillow. Not that kind of woman. Not anymore. Instead, she walked to the kitchen and opened her email. Subject line: requesting emergency leave, personal. She typed simply, I need to step away for a few days. I will be reachable in case of emergencies. Thank you for understanding. Then she hit send. She had found the rental online at 2 a.m., while lying awake beside a man she would never understand again. The place was close to the hospital, small, sunlit, and temporary. A corner studio with a wide window and a kitchen that fit only 1 person. Perfect. At 8:12 a.m., she closed the front door behind her. It was the last time. No goodbye. No slam. Just a door. Softly locked. She left no explanations. Only a single envelope on the table. Inside, a folded sheet of paper with 6 lines of ink. The truth didn't need to be shouted. It was waiting for you. In the back seat of a car you never thought I'd see. You left the door open. I just chose to walk through it. By 9 a.m., she had settled into the new apartment. Salem curled against the window. The sun, reluctant but present, warmed the sill. Brianna sat cross-legged on the floor, unpacking slowly. Every motion was quiet, deliberate, like resetting a life. She didn't check her phone. She didn't open social media. The world could wait. She boiled water and made tea, this time finishing it while it was still hot. Her mind didn't race. It wandered. Not to Malcolm. Not to what he might be thinking. But to the parts of herself she'd put away too long. The woman who used to paint. Who once wanted to go to Italy. Who used to run just to feel her lungs stretch. It wasn't just a breakup. It was a resurrection. She had been shrinking herself for so long. Making space. Smoothing edges. Making peace with excuses. With gaslighting wrapped in charm. With absence explained by stress. Now, there was no need. No one to make smaller for. The silence in the apartment wasn't lonely. It was honest. It breathed with her. Around noon, she walked to the corner market. Bought groceries. A bunch of tulips. A lemon. A box of Salem's favorite treats. She greeted the cashier with a smile that felt new on her face. Not forced. Not polite. Just hers. In the afternoon, she wrote in her journal. Not about what had happened but about what she hadn't let herself want for years. She wrote the word freedom 5 times. Each one softer. Each one louder. By the time evening fell, she had lit a candle by the bed and placed her parents' photo on the desk. She looked at their faces for a long time. They had stayed together through so much. But they also never lied. Never made each other feel invisible. That was the part she admired most. She didn't cry that night. She didn't need to. She had already shed the weight. Outside, the city buzzed like it always did. But inside the small apartment, everything was still. And for the first time in a long time so was she. Some women leave a letter. Some just leave. But our next woman? She never even got the chance. She was 8 months pregnant. Waiting in a waiting room. For a man who never walked in. Instead, she got a bill. Not for flowers. Not for diapers. For a dinner. For 2. At a rooftop bar in Soho. Stay with us for the next chapter in 10 True Affair Stories from New York. Because sometimes, love doesn't fade. It disappears receipt by receipt.